Welcome, everyone, to today's episode of Carefulist the podcast. We have an amazing episode for you today. We have welcomed Crystal Gallo, the founder of Inner Hive. Welcome, Crystal.
Hi, thanks for having me.
Oh, I'm so glad that you could be here today. I can't wait to get to the part about what you've done. But before we get to that, I would love to hear where you came from. What is your caregiving story? How did you get into this?
Yeah, I can't say I planned it. I think, like most families, it was pretty unexpected. So we found ourselves during the pandemic in a crisis situation, and we had to make a decision. So we did the best we could. Certainly, there's a lot of pressure when you've got a short time frame to try to figure out what's best for your loved one, to try to figure out where you have flexibility, and then you just converge. So we ended up moving my grandmother who has dementia and my uncle who has cancer. We brought them across country to live with us. Um,
Okay.
very different conditions, so I'm sure you can imagine it was a very insightful journey, but two conditions that have very different needs and progress at different rates, I think left us feeling quite unprepared and but there was a lot of learning.
Yeah. Yeah, they are very, very different conditions and they require so many different things and different parts of your brain really to help to manage all of that and your effort and your energy.
Yeah. Yeah, it was a lot. It but it's good.
Yeah.
This is not going to be my last time caregiving, so I think I'm really grateful for having had this opportunity again, and not something that we weren't expecting it, but it was also kind of a blessing in the sense that I grew up in a multi-generational home. So if you have the opportunity to give care and give love and kind of pay it forward, I don't think there's anything better that you can kind of gift people that really did that for you. So
Yeah. Oh, absolutely. Um, so this all happened during the pandemic, which was already a very stressful time. And then I would imagine finding the care that they needed and making sure that everybody was safe during that time was extra stressful. So how did you manage that? And how were you able to find pockets of joy or areas where you could maintain your sense of humor? Because that's a really tall order.
yeah, I had no humor in the beginning. I'm
I
typically a
bet.
pretty sarcastic person. I have high expectations, but I'm definitely lighthearted, like to have fun, adventure driven. And I think when I get stressed, I go into there's a mode. It switches on and I go into fix it, I go into solve it, and
Mhm.
I get very serious and very focused. And I think that's where we're at. I mean, you said it. You move across country, you've got a new living space. At the time, we had a new special needs dog we brought in. We were all navigating in the world a brand new way of,
Yeah.
working, living at home, multiple people in a small environment every day. And to kind of disrupt all of that, and then you've got all of the logistics. You're bringing people to a new home, a new state. You have to set that up for safety, but you also have to think about, what does it look like to set up insurance? So what does it look like to find new doctors? What's the lag look like? So you've got a financial toll. And then
Mhm.
again, as needs change, you do your best. That line of being a caregiver and a loved one, I never imagined that to be so difficult, but that absolutely was a struggle because, like you
Yeah.
said, you're focused on what do I need to do? How do I need to make sure there's safety, nutrition, and everything set up and get to the appointments and not miss anything and capture all the notes. And then you exhale and you're like, wow, when did we have the time to play a game, enjoy each other's company, remember all the things that are still there as
Yes.
your daughter or your niece or what that looks like. And that became really hard.
Mm.
I think probably where I struggled most was because I have high expectations in the beginning. All I saw were areas of opportunity, and all I saw was this growing list of things that we needed to do, to establish, to plan, to be prepared for. But I
Mhm.
didn't feel like I had the capacity to address all of it. And so
Yeah.
I just started to break down. And I think when I hit that puddle phase and I was retreating to my closet for my respite to clear my mind, to want to scream, to want to figure out like what in the world does tomorrow look like. Um, I think that was my turning point. I think that's when I realized you can't control everything. You can't do everything. You can only do the best you can with what you have. And I
Yep.
just needed to kind of relinquish that a little bit. That's a lot for me.
That's a
So
really hard thing to do, particularly for people who are programmed to be high achievers. Um, that sense of I can't control it all. And even if you
mhm,
logically know that, you still want to do that, especially when it's someone that you love. You want to make sure that you are doing everything you possibly can for a positive and good outcome. Um, and a big part of the caregiving journey is exactly what you just talked about, learning how to let go, the things that you can let go, and control the things you can. And the hard thing is knowing the difference, right? Especially when you're so tired and you're so focused on just getting through these next five things so that you can get to the next five things so that you can get to tomorrow. It can be really hard to lose sight of that.
yeah, I think it's super easy when you're in it and in the thick of it. You're in, I mean, your cortisol is running exceptionally high, and
Yeah.
you're so focused on someone else, and you've got such great care and desire to love and give them what they need and to not disappoint, that the first thing that often gets compromised is, I don't remember, did I eat? How did I sleep? What did it taste like? What do I need?
Right.
Very quickly just moves to the back burner. So yeah,
Yeah. And I think that's universal for caregivers is it becomes all about the person they're taking care of and not at all about themselves. And you do forget
yeah,
when you showered last, when you ate what you ate, all of those things. And one of the recurring themes, not just on this podcast, but in general conversations that I have with other caregivers, is remembering to secure your own oxygen mask before you
yeah.
try to work with somebody else. And that's so easy to say, but when you are in the thick of it, because I know there are people listening right now who are like, yeah, come here and show me how to do that.
Yeah.
It
That's
is
what I felt.
really hard.
People are like, you need to talk to people. Why haven't you returned my call? You need to go do this. And I was like, stop telling me what to do right now. I'm just trying to get through today. And then tomorrow I will see what that brings and we'll go from there. And, there were little slices, there were bright lights for sure. I think
Yeah.
to maintain my sanity after I found myself in a place where I was super unfamiliar, did not ever navigate that level of kind of emotional stress before. It forced me to have to pivot my thinking. And so I'm grateful for that new perspective. It also helped me realize, when you talk about things that brought me joy, water and music has always been really therapeutic. So, as a child, I'd fall asleep on the cassette to ocean waves whenever there was an opportunity to go to the beach and be by water, to hear it, to smell it. Like there's something very soothing. So anytime that we had the chance to do, some sort of sunset walk or beach walk or anything that was adjacent or nearby, those small slivers, it was something that I held on to.
Yeah.
There were certainly times it was harder, like when you're it was always an event trying to bring a wheelchair out on sand. And so sometimes you just got to bring it out and then you park it there and it's like you don't move and you enjoy
Yep.
what is and then you go back and uh, do that. But yeah, it was still fun. There was a lot of, moments. I think you asked about humor and something that we learned in the very end when you're working with someone, especially as their needs progress. And with my uncle, he became nonverbal in the end, so he wasn't able to communicate and talk as he typically would. So you'd have to look for other signals or body language, or he'd communicate with his eyes. And so you needed to respect a lot of that,
Mhm.
including with humor, right? Knowing
Yeah.
when you can joke and you can see it kind of light up. With my grandmother with dementia, negotiation is, I don't even know if that's the right word. It's people often forget the skills that you still have and they're focused on everything that you've lost. And we learn to be able to look at the end. We found ourselves in a place where it's like, okay, yeah, you can't do all these things, but we can still laugh. You can still get super
Right.
excited how bright a strawberry is and want to try it, or you can, appreciate music and feel soothed. Or so
Hmm.
we found ourselves in these situations where it's like, okay, let's focus on the things that we can appreciate that are fun, and
Yeah.
also focusing on like what is it about those things that you can find humor in. So,
Hmm.
growing up, my grandmother always used to say, "You're not the boss of me." Like that was her, you've got some isms we all have as we go through life. And she was always very strong-willed, like, I make my choices and I will be responsible for the choices I make. You don't need to
Hmm.
make them for me. I've got this. It's like, okay, okay, great until the end. And so there were some things that she couldn't get her head around, like a tomato that was not red. You know, you've heard of like a Cherokee, a purple, or
Right.
some people call it a black tomato, or sun gold that's yellow.
Yeah.
And we had made a sandwich one day, and I've never seen a tomato get ripped off a sandwich so fast. She was like, "Oh, I'm not eating this. This is dirty." And I was like, "No, no, no, no. That's an heirloom tomato, Nanny. That's like it's good. You
Yeah.
should. I'm not eating it." And we
Yep.
sat there. I was like, "I'm not gonna negotiate with her. She didn't want to eat it. That's fine." But I tried to explain. I was like, "Look, I'll wipe it off. It's not dirty. It's just the type of tomato." And she was like, "You're not the boss of me. I'm not gonna eat this tomato. It's dirty." I was like, "Okay." just gotta like just gotta let it roll. And it's those moments of humor where you just
Understood.
yeah. Yeah. I was like, got it. No more heirloom tomatoes for you, only red ones. Yeah. So we were able to find kind of fun moments like that we still hold on to.
Yeah.
And it's just part of the learning.
Oh, that's great. You just reminded me, actually. One of the things I love about having these conversations is being reminded of certain memories for myself with my mom. And she always loved potato chips. I mean, like the saltier, the better. Like the plain Lay's chips were her favorite. And we were all sitting in their kitchen, my siblings and their spouses and all of the kids. We were together. I don't remember for what family gathering, but um, my dad was sitting on a chair, and my mom was nonverbal at this point with her Alzheimer's. She lost her ability to speak, but she was still able to find humor and do things. So she came over and she sat on his lap, and we were like, well, this is different. She hasn't done that in forever. And then we realized she sat on his lap because he was the closest seat to the potato chips.
She's like, yes,
And we
convenience. I
made
know
a
what I want.
comment and we all started laughing about it. And she started laughing too. Like, yeah, that's why I sat here.
Yeah. Yeah, you can feel it. I mean, there's the emotions are like one of the things, there's so many sensory things that stay with you through the end. And if you're misunderstood or you forget or you lose recognition, you still have so much of that like deep rooted feeling. And if you can,
Yeah.
tap into it, it brings I don't know, it brings memories. Yeah. Like I always appreciate those stories.
Yeah. Well, and for the folks who are listening, my mom's been gone for about a year now, and that's a really happy memory for me that I forgot about until this conversation. And so just as a sidebar, it's really helpful to talk about your people that you've lost or just your caregiving experience in general because things like this come up for you. And then it is a happy thing. It's nice to be able to remember who they were and the things that you enjoyed with them. So I would encourage people to talk about it, even though it's hard.
Yeah.
Um,
Reminder.
okay, so you were caring for your uncle who had cancer and your grandmother who had dementia. And we've already talked about how different those things are. Um, how did that give rise to what you're doing now? Because you've created something awesome. And I'm measuring my words because I don't want to steal your thunder, but I'm so excited for you to tell people what you've done.
Yeah. I mean, I think I kind of gave you a little lens into my emotional roller coaster. I think before I used
Yeah.
to pride myself, I loved chaos. It was an indicator that I was learning. It was challenging. I could,
Yep.
that kind of uh, situation environment was actually fun. Emotional stress, as I've learned, not fun. Something I
Yeah.
also learned I have a different threshold in terms of tolerating and what that looks like.
Yep.
Um, but what I gained was new perspective. I don't think oftentimes people can tell you, you can read, you can learn, you can prepare, and there's many things that you can certainly have the ability to influence the outcome or impact the outcome in some capacity. But I don't think anyone can actually prepare you for the emotional journey. And the
That's right.
empathy that I built going through it, sitting in it, feeling it, knowing that, yes, this is my problem, but there's so many other people out there, and we all have 1,000 problems every day, and there's going to be 1,000 more tomorrow. And so you're trying to figure out which problem do I want to solve? Um, what would be the most meaningful? What are families, so under pressure for? What is worth solving where they're going to take action? And I found that to be really important. So obviously our family had our own journey and I learned from that and I felt inspired to be part of something bigger. You sit in that empathy and it drives you. You want to create
Yes.
change.
Right.
You're like, I need to do something. I want to be part of this. I want to go out, I want to work with the other leaders, the other advocates. And it's not always about solving a problem for me or what is important specifically to what we went through,
Mhm.
but it is definitely about solving a problem for families that is important and worth solving. And it's something that they'll actually go and they need and they're going to take action on.
Mhm.
And that was a discovery. So I really wanted to talk to other families, talk to a couple hundred, wanted to learn what are their pain points, what are they going through? Okay, here's what I went through. Let's reconcile. I was in this place where I had kind of had this crazy emotional journey. I built a lot of empathy. I'm now sitting with a new perspective.
Mhm.
It's time to do something. And so that was kind of the crux of I felt and I saw it and I knew it was time to be part of something bigger. I wanted to contribute. I wanted to pivot. And that's when InnerHive was founded. So it was kind of birthed from this inspiration. And we have other individuals on our team that have gone through care journeys. And so hearing their care experiences and their perspective and bringing that
Mhm.
all to the table, that collective view for wellness, I think carries so much value. And we recognize that caregivers are so focused on providing care, and so many organizations and people want to support and also help them, but you forget about yourself. And so we really wanted to focus on the caregiver. We wanted to focus on their wellness and really transform how we care for ourselves and for
Mhm.
others. So it's really about caregiver wellness, and that's the center, that's the goods, that's the belly, the guts of Inner Hive.
Yeah. Oh, and it's such a, as you said, it's such a different perspective because there's all of this
Mhm.
outside help, and you can go here and you can go there to help you take care of your person. But who's helping you take care of you? And, when we were talking earlier, it was like, yeah, just show me, tell me how I can have more time for me. What can I do for myself? And Inner Hive is really here to help with that.
Yeah. Yeah, a lot of people don't recognize, but data's shown how powerful community can be. And
Yes.
you often think like, I need more time. We can't control that every day. There's we, and I say we like an organization, that's not something we can control. You need help, and the help is in form of often, there's a financial component. There's often a community component, which also opens up time for yourself. And so when you think about the the common denominator, and when you're hearing what families are going through and you're part of it or you've experienced it, maybe this resonates with you. It's your wellness is so reliant on feeling connected, on feeling a purpose, on feeling like you've got
Yes.
support and a community bigger than just you.
Hmm.
Because as they say with children or with any sort of, you look at a family, you look at a school system, whatever it is, it always takes a collection. It's a group of
Hmm.
people, it's a village, it's people surrounding you and coming in. And so we know that if you've got that community, you're able to then have wellness. And so Inner Hive is very much about augmenting that community. Yeah, we want to give people, the caregivers, we want to make it efficient and effective to kind of move through that crisis stage to like get all the very important information organized, make it easy to be able to manage and get everyone aligned so that you're rowing in the same direction. Then figure out who are your people, who is around you, who's in your support network, how can you tap into them, how can you ask for help, what does it look like to get help. um, so it's really about how can we grow that support network, because that's so critical to wellness.
Yeah. So can you walk the audience through how Inner Hive would help them, or what it would be like to use Inner Hive?
Yeah, so I mean, certainly we've talked about, there's the day to day. Most people come in like me, you're unexpectedly thrown into caregiving. So you've got like, what is my burning top of mind question that I need answered? Or what is my checklist of like everyday tasks? We give caregivers the ability to streamline that. It's super easy. Put in any sort of, from appointments to medications to care notes to documents, throw it all in there, get it organized. Um, we really want to provide the space that you can add those care routines so that you can have that context, so that you can go through that checklist and say, okay, what do I need to do today? Okay, what do I need to do for advanced care planning? What do I need to do for estate planning? All that really helps you get organized. And if you can be organized and you can be informed to make decisions, it makes it easier to move through every situation. It also makes it easier to understand how people can help, where you need help, what you need for personal time. And so our bread and butter is very much like get your care map organized. It's a visual. It tells you who is who, how they're involved, what it is that they're supporting you with. And if you can see all the people and all the places involved in the care journey, it just sets the situation. Like you get it just like that. I mean, you don't just scroll through docs, you don't just scroll through contact lists. You just look at this visual and you're like, ah, okay, these are all the people. These are people in my community. These are people in my household. These are my caregivers. This is my primary, my specialists. This is what my living situation looks like. You can very quickly see the holistic picture. And
Yeah.
that's really important when you're thinking about, okay, here's the situation. Let's help others understand the complexity and build empathy.
Hmm.
Then let's make sure that we've got a space for the community. And so
Yeah.
we have a community page that's really all about here's where you can post updates, here's where you can share inspiration, you can delegate, receive support. Families had said, we have information coming at us from every angle. I can't keep up with the calls and the texts and the emails. If I could just, I don't have the mental load to keep 5 different people in the loop. If I can just push one update and it goes to everyone, and then they want to chatter and comment and support and love and do what they need, and I know I got them the information they needed, and I can kind of exhale and focus on mom right now or whomever.
Hmm.
Um, that's what the community space is about. It's how can you easily keep everyone informed all at once? Uh, and eventually, we're going to be building out kind of this care calendar, so it makes it even easier to visualize what are the tasks that you're working on, what are the different care events that you're contributing and investing your time in. Where
Hmm.
can people jump in and volunteer? Because maybe, in the caregiver journal part of the app, I get to track how I feel as a caregiver. So maybe today wasn't a good day. Maybe yesterday wasn't a good day. Maybe tomorrow I found myself not having a good day either. So I want to look and understand, okay, I'm having a crummy week. What's contributing to that? Oh, wow, I spent a lot of time on meal prep this week and I just don't like meal prep. I don't want to deal with food and thinking about it.
Hmm.
There's an opportunity to ask the community and say, who can help me with this? This is going to be so valuable to me. I don't enjoy it. It's going to make me feel so much better. It's going to change my sentiment and I can go
Yes.
then do something that brings me joy.
Yes. Oh, that's amazing. So, um, to make sure that it's clear and everyone understands, Inner Hive is an app that you can download your phone, your tablet, wherever, and it will give you a visual of where you are spending your time as long as you're putting in all of that information. Once you do that, it maps it out for you. So think of it, it's called hive for a reason. Think of it like a little beehive with all the little honeycombs and where everything lives in these different pieces of the hive. And what I love about it, well, things, it helps you to see where the gaps are. So, you can quickly visualize where you're spending time and where you have help. And then there are going to be glaring pockets where, oh, I don't have help. This isn't being taken care of. So I either need to handle this or ask somebody who can help me handle this. Um, the other thing I like about it is it's one of these tools that removes the hurdle or the barrier for family and friends who don't live in the same town as you. They can see what's going on, they can see where they can help, even if they're across the country. They can contribute, and it removes that, "Oh, I'm too far away, I can't help you." Nope, anymore.
Yeah, I love that. We've had a number of families when we design this, it's more common now to have families spread out across state lines or countries
Yes,
than it is to have like in aggregated areas. And people have said we have our own life. It's so difficult. We can't always do like what we did where we moved family in, or we couldn't go and we couldn't move across the country. And so you find yourself trying to figure out how to manage it. And
yep,
if you can do things and understand what's going on and know that they're safe, you can get the updates. Some people want to help. Maybe they fly in and it is, lending a hand. Some people are like, I'll just make sure they always have food every week. Or some people are there doing the care and helping at home. So I think there's so many different ways that people can help and can care for their families and their loved ones. And
mhm,
oftentimes they just don't know how. And if they can see what's going on and they know who's in the support community and what it is that they can contribute, we all have good intent. We want to do good for our families. We want to be there.
right, yeah. So one of the conversations you and I have had privately is this concern that caregivers have about what things cost.
Mm.
and how much money they have to spend on all these different things. So I'm sure there are people who are out there who are like, oh, okay, this sounds great, but what's it going to set me back? And this part I love, but I'm going to let you share.
the, the softball pitch right there. So it is available on Apple and it's available on Android. As Katie had mentioned, you can certainly go and you can download it in the App Store. You can also go to our website at www.innerhive.com. There is a free version for everyone. So we wanted to make it equitable. We wanted all families to be able to have the opportunity to capture their support network, to be able to advocate for their wellness. There's an option that if people that want additional features, so if you need extra resources, if you need to customize options, if you need deeper coordination, features, this is something that you can get with InnerHive Plus. So that subscription model is available to those that need it, and that would be 5 a month or 50 for the year. So a very affordable investment for anyone that's in a situation where they really want to manage care in a structured and a supported way.
Yeah. Um, uh, that's the big thing for me is the equitable part because caregiving affects everyone. And the situation that we have is that the people who can afford care obviously are the ones who are handling things more easily than everyone else. And the fact that you can have this for free for one person, and if you want to continue it on that way, you can, or if you are just curious about it, you don't have to spend anything to be able to try it. And my instinct is once you get into it and you see what it can do, you're going to be like, this is the best $5 I could spend a month.
Yeah.
It's one or two less coffees or whatever that equates to. It is so worth the time. Um, what it frees up for you mentally, that alone is worth it.
Yeah, I think you just hit on it. We've had a lot of families that use InnerHive right now say, "Do you know how much relief it is to have everything in one place?" Because when we're across the country and something happens, we don't know where that document is, or we don't have any idea that there is or is not a binder. But to be able to have, even if you don't have all the medical history in there, even if you haven't spent time in that, and you just know, here's what's going on going forward. Here's the appointments, here's some of the context, here's some of the things that we're tracking progress over time. Like those things show you trends. Those things help you understand how to get in front of, how to prevent, how to provide better outcomes. And so
Yeah.
we've had so many families that have said, it's so awesome to be able to log those things and those notes and to have a space that it's we can access it on the go. We want to bring in respite care, they've got access. We want to
Mhm.
leave for the night. We feel confident that we put all the most important information to manage an emergency, also the most important information in terms of understanding context. So what does mom or dad or your child or whomever it is that you're caring for, what do they need? What does
Mhm.
a frown mean if maybe they are nonverbal? These are all things that make such a big difference when you're caring and you're stepping in and you're trying to
Yeah.
grow and align a support network. So yeah, you don't need to feel alone. People talk about how isolating it can be, and I know from
Mhm.
personal experience, I shut down, I shut everyone out. I went into like solve it mode, and it doesn't need to be that way. If we can focus on our own wellness, but if we can also allow community that wants to support us in and
Yeah.
provide this space where we can collaborate, it feels less daunting. You feel um yeah, I don't know. It's
More
just
connected.
easier to connect.
Yeah.
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 Well, and that's the thing too, right? People do want to help. They
Hmm.
want to be involved. They want to know what they can do for you because they love and they care for you. Um, and it's really hard sometimes to know what the right thing is to do. And so sometimes people choose silence instead because they're afraid of saying the wrong thing or offering the wrong thing. So something like this can make it so easy to look at and go, oh, you haven't had a chance to do XYZ yet. Let me take that off your plate. Or you can say, gosh, I keep not getting to this. Could somebody help me?
Yeah.
Yeah. Because one of the things that I know from experience and from what I've talked about with other folks is somebody offers help and you're like, I need help with everything. And I
Mhm.
can't think of one single thing to ask you to do for me.
Yeah.
Like that's a hard question when it's so open-ended.
Yeah, and there's already a lot of mental load. That's something that we'll be
Yeah.
working on with the help calendar. It's like, what are the things that everyone needs? You're always going to need food and, safe housing and transport. And so there's some obvious things
Yeah.
that are always going to be an opportunity to help. And then the caregiver can kind of figure out what are the boundaries that you can put up so that people can respect when it is appropriate to step in or to stop by or to help or and everyone's different. Everyone communicates and everyone learns differently. I mean, we've had caregivers and families say having this community page, a place to post updates and to feel like I don't need to manage a bunch of texts and emails. I feel
Yeah.
good and people can get notified and they can comment and I feel like I'm keeping everyone informed. It also makes me feel connected because when I share it and they respond back, now we've got a collective thread going of, a conversation around, oh, here's how our day went. And I feel like they see it, they're there with me, even though they're across the country,
Right.
we're connected on this. And for
Yeah.
those that maybe don't like that social realm and they want to look more, they like to reflect a little bit more intimately or they like to journal, we have a space for journaling. And so we've had families say it's so nice to get notified every day and say, how was your day? How do you feel? Do you want to log it? Do you want to talk about it? And I get to kind of put in there and say, here's how I'm feeling, or here's what I did today, or whatever that may be, but it still makes you feel connected. You're capturing
Yeah.
your journey, you're reflecting, you're learning to find the positive moments in it and not always just get drudged down by what is all the to do,
Hmm.
transactional things that I have to get through. And we're trying to help people see it doesn't always need to be survival mode. Like you tap your community, you find a way to connect with yourself, with others. It changes the experience.
Yeah. Well, and if you give that visibility, right? So even if there's someone who isn't talking with the person who's receiving care every day or is only seeing them every few months, and it's on a good day, and they go, well, they seem fine to me, or I don't see what you're talking about. You're saying all these things, but that's not my experience. If it's in Inner Hive and they have access and they're seeing it consistently and you're talking about it more often, it starts to remove some of that tension as well.
Yes, good point. Yeah, that is so true with family members because a lot of people, I don't know if you experience this. I did in my personal life. I was trying to manage uh, work and a business and caring, manage family. I didn't make it to that list initially, but now I understand after I went through learning, I should have been on that pie chart too.
Yeah.
Um, but it's like as you're going through that, and when you talk about just creating a space to help people understand, well, what are you spending your time on? I don't understand. How do you not have time for that? Take 15 minutes to go walk the dog or take 30 minutes for coffee. I was like, do you know what happens in those 30 minutes? Or it's 24/7 care. We need coverage
Right.
or we need to worry about this or what if someone doesn't have this information or and
Mhm.
so it it can be frustrating and that's where I found myself just shutting down and like stop asking me, stop not. But
Yeah.
when you can share it and people can see trends over time or they can
Right.
see, oh my goodness, wow, that's how long it takes because having that conversation now at this age with that condition, it's not easy. You have to
Right.
learn how to help them understand. You have to not put them on their heels. You have to be kind and compassionate and still get to the same end
Yeah.
result, taking a different path there. So I
Yeah.
love what you just raised because I think that's such an issue when you're cross country and it's so hard to understand like what's going on and is that really an issue? Is that really how you're spending your time? But when you can
Right.
kind of share it, it helps people. They're there, they get it a little bit more.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. And well, something as simple as meals. Till
Yeah.
you prepare it, that might not take that long. But if it's someone who can no longer feed themselves, or if they don't recognize what's on the plate and they don't want the heirloom tomato, and you
Mm.
have to negotiate your way through that,
Yep.
suddenly what was maybe a half an hour is an hour and a half. And you're doing that 3 times a day. Well, you've lost nearly 5 hours. Not lost, wrong word. You know what I'm
Yeah,
saying.
totally.
So now that little 5 minutes, you're hoping for that to be able to use the bathroom yourself.
Yep.
That 15-minute window, you're like, I think I could quickly get a shower and not worry about them because they're asleep right now. It's those little pockets can't be used for walking the dog when you're in that situation. Those little pockets are now used for your very basic human needs.
100%.
Um,
Yeah.
yeah.
Food's huge. I don't think people think about like you move through the day and we all have to eat, but when you have different conditions, so you have different preferences, and obviously
Mhm.
you want to get people the nutrition they need, but if they're not willing to eat it and you're having to negotiate and they're going to pick off all the tomatoes, you want to make sure you have
Yep.
that feedback or you prep different food. And in the end for us, it was really hard because my uncle wasn't able to eat food. And so everything had to be pureed, and then eventually there was supplemental nutrition through a feeding
Yep.
tube, and then we moved in that same direction with my grandmother.
Mhm.
So you have to be careful about the quantity they get. I mean, the crock pot was our best friend. Anything that could be done in that. Prep it at night when everyone in the world is quiet. You turn it on during the day. Not only that, you can make soup sauces. Like you can make all the stuff that you can just let go for the day, and it's really easy to puree, and you can do high
Mhm.
scale. So we
Yes.
lived by that crock pot
Mhm.
because you forget. And every mealtime, it's not like, there's distraction or it takes longer because it's harder to swallow, or there's cleaning if you have a feeding tube, and there's maintenance and flushing, and there's these
Right.
small things that people forget about. And it's like, no, mealtime is not 30 or an hour. It's like 2 hours.
Yeah.
And that's putting a lot of care and thought and trying to get to the outcome of like everyone finishing their food in a good place. And then you still have to
Right.
make sure like as you're going through, the needs change for your nutrition and the time when you need to eat it
Mhm.
changes, or you've got maybe care plan or medicine changes that impact when you eat or what you eat. And all of that, trying to keep track of that and manage and, be really thoughtful about it is hard. So huge time.
Right.
It's all about productivity. Like I want to preserve and be as efficient as I can with my time so I can use it doing the things I love as their family member. Um,
Yes.
so
Yes. You need to, that's something that I've had so many conversations about is caregiving can become so transactional.
mm, yeah.
And that is really depressing in and of itself because your relationship with that person isn't a relationship. It's doing the things that need to be done. And when you can get some more of that time back, that you can be the daughter, niece, granddaughter, grandson, nephew, whatever, and they can be your grandma, aunt, uncle, grandfather, spouse. Um, that is the kind of time that sustains you for the stuff that's hard.
Hmm.
And so being able to be efficient is extremely important so that you can maintain the relationship that you have with them and also have some time to grieve and mourn the way things have changed because that is something that hits you in the rare quiet moments, right? You know, you're going and you're going and you're going, and all of a sudden you have time for a shower and you don't know why you're crying in the shower. And then you're like,
Yeah.
oh, yeah, I'm crying in the shower because of all of these things. And I don't have time to deal with it. So here I am. Being able to make time to sit with those feelings and sort of reconcile where you are and what you miss and what you still have. Um, for those who aren't familiar, the term for it is anticipatory grief, when you're
Mm,
grieving things that you haven't yet lost, but you know you're going to lose for one reason or another. Um, it's called anticipatory grief, but the anticipatory isn't a qualifier. It's not less grief. It's just grief before something more final happens, right? Um, so I spend a lot of time thinking about that and talking about that because I didn't have a word for it for a long time while I was experiencing it. And I was like, what is happening to me? Why am I so upset? And I came across the term anticipatory grief and I was like, that's what this awful feeling is. And it's so helpful when you can have a name for it. You know, just naming it is so important and so helpful because then you're like, oh, well, I'm not going crazy.
mm,
Not yet, not about this. This is just what this is. And having the time to learn about things like that, reconcile those things for yourself makes the time that you have with your person that much higher quality.
Yeah. Yeah. What was interesting to me, I'm curious to hear if you experience this at all, or even now in talking with others. But for me, it was when you talk about putting a label on something,
Mhm.
there was a lot of families that we talked to in the beginning phases of Inner Hive to try to understand like what's going on with other families, what are they experiencing. So many people don't actually associate with the term caregiver because of what you said. They see it as, oh no, I love my husband and I'm just helping. Oh no, I love my child and it's my responsibility as a parent, or I love, my mom and I'm just doing what I can. And
Mhm.
they didn't see that boundary or that line of them being a caregiver because they just saw it as it's part of being a family. We're family, we love
Right.
each other, we step in, we care for each other. And I understand and recognize that is not the dynamic for all families out there. I very much have awareness around it can be difficult. I think all of our own families, there's different battles. And so not saying that every family is healthy, but most families, they want to care for or be there and they're not like, oh yeah, I am a caregiver. So it's
Right.
very interesting when we were talking to families like, oh, yeah, I guess I am a caregiver. I am providing care and I am doing this and I'm doing it with good intent and
Hmm.
this is what I hope to achieve, but I am a caregiver. So yes, I could use support or I could, whatever that may look like, but that was a unique
Yeah.
learning for me.
And that's a really interesting point. And I think when you look at it from that perspective, it's easier to accept help
Mm,
because it is a role you're playing. It is not your relationship with your loved one.
mm.
They're two different things.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. Super hard to really as a caregiver versus a daughter. When do you transition to that? What the emotions that you just talked about, what should I be feeling? When you're navigating, what am I feeling? What should I be feeling? What are other feeling? Like, is this what
Yep.
others are going through? Is this part of, there's a journey that we're not getting younger. So there's a journey that we're all going through. And I imagine,
Right.
like I said, this won't be my last caregiving experience, but I also think about what does my future look like when I'm on the other
Yes.
side of the receiving end of it. What
Mhm.
am I going to be navigating for my emotions then, or what I need, or how I collaborate and the healthy relationships that I'm forming? It's all
Right.
rolling around up there.
Yeah. Same. And, you just said something that I haven't thought about as much that I would love to think about and will think about is from the person who is receiving the care, their perspective of how the relationship has changed, because that's something that they also have to really reconcile.
Mhm.
Um, Particularly, I would imagine if they are a parent who is now receiving care from their child, because that's the opposite of what it has always been, right?
Yeah, yeah, yeah. And sometimes you don't mean it, but as you're going through, when you're stressed, both people are stressed. If you're on the care recipient and you're receiving, and maybe it really bums you out to be out of your zone or to have to accommodate, but you've got to do it if you want care. And if you're the caregiver, same thing. And sometimes emotions run high and you don't mean it, but you both get a little irritated with each other and how you receive
Yep.
it and how you navigate that. And because I don't want to get old. I don't want to lose my cognitive or my physical. And it
Mhm.
stinks to have to rely on someone. But at some point, I'm going to have to accept it. And there's going to be a way to do it with finesse. And there's going to be a way to maintain, respect and to make sure that the trust in the relationship doesn't get eroded because of how you're
Yes.
communicating or how you're treating each other. And sometimes you just need to give each other grace, whether it's that caregiver, care recipient dynamic, or whether it's the caregiver and their surrounding community.
Hmm.
There's just so many opportunities, I think, to just realize this person's going through a lot. They're still trying
Yeah.
to process, like, whew, exhale, have some patience, we'll get through it.
Yeah.
Try not to hurt each other in the process.
Right. Well, and I would imagine, um, that's where the walk that you talked about on the beach, even if you're just
Mm,
parking a wheelchair on the sand, the fresh air and the change of scenery can be so good for both people because it just gives you a chance to kind of reset, especially if you've had maybe a tough day or a tough morning or whatever. Getting out of your typical environment, even if it's out to the front yard or down the street to a park, depending where you live, just getting out.
yeah.
it can change the whole perspective and the whole mood for the rest of the day.
100%. And I think what I really appreciate about caregiving and what reminds me of like the cycle of life when you're youthful, you're so good about being in the moment and having this unfiltered, unjaded view on life. And I see
Yeah,
that as you go through life. I experienced that with my grandmother, and there would be times where you talk about anticipatory grief, and there'd be times where we might go, we go to the farmer's market every week because she loved the vibrant colors. So she'd always be trying to pick. We'd end up coming home with different food or different snacks. So she'd be like, "Ooh, look at that." And it'd be, strawberry, but it was so
yeah,
vibrant and exciting to her that night. And so we'd go, and there'd be times when I'd be thinking and I'd just start crying because I was already thinking about, oh, how is this going to change? How is it already changing? And she'd be like, "What's
yeah,
wrong? It's so beautiful out. Do you want a strawberry too?" Because she's so in the moment. She didn't get it because my mind was
yeah,
elsewhere. And it
right.
helped bring me back to just, okay, enjoy and appreciate this because I'm always my mind naturally
Yeah,
my personality is like 10 steps ahead. I want to think about the future and then work my way back and kind of
yeah,
reverse engineer everything I need to do to make sure I hit that outcome or achievement or whatever. So,
right.
yeah.
Yeah. That is such a good reminder because whatever's going to happen is going to happen, right? And it comes back to that control aspect. There's only so much we have control over. And if you're not in the moment, there are wonderful things that you miss. And that's not feel guilty about this. It's a just try to remember it. And, you're doing the best that you can as a caregiver because your brain is a million different places. You can't help it. I mean, that's just the role you're playing right now.
Yep. 100%.
Well, this has been an amazing conversation. I am so glad that this worked out and that you were able to tell everyone about Inner Hive. Is there anything else that you would like them to know about Inner Hive or the way it works?
I mean, just really eager to connect with families. We know that caregiving can sometimes feel like a lonely experience, and it's really important and meaningful for us to help other families just engage with their community, grow their support network, because we know how powerful it is when you have that connection, that purpose, that community. It really does have a good positive impact on your wellness, whether or not you can see it right now because you're in the thick of it and you're in that survival mode. We want to help families get through that crisis, and really focus on making sure that caregivers feel empowered. They've got the support, they've got the resources, they can organize all the information, but really they remember themselves. They don't want to lose who they are. They want to ensure that they're in a good, healthy space because we all want to give, but if we have nothing to give with, if we're not in a healthy state, it impacts that, the care that we extend. And so
Yeah,
it's just a really important message to remember to care for yourself. Your wellness is just as important. And, there's people out there and there's tools like Inner Hive that are really going to help you augment your support network so that you can remember to kind of promote your own wellness.
absolutely. Well, Crystal Gallo, founder of Inner Hive, thank you so much for joining us today. It was a pleasure.
Yeah, this was great. It was awesome. Thanks for having me.
Anytime. And for those of you listening at home, thank you for joining us for this episode of Carefulist the podcast. See you next time.